Alright, so I've got something special for you guys today. And just the other day, this channel finally hit 1,000 subscribers, which means the channel is now fully monetized. Don't worry, I'm not going to be adding mid-rolls though. I know that stuff's super annoying and I don't like to deal with it myself. So no mid-rolls on the channel, unless YouTube literally forces me to put them, right? But I wanted to do something special to thank all of you guys for your support that you've shown me. And I couldn't think of a better way to do it than to improve the build improvement that probably introduced the majority of you to my channel. Of course, I'm talking about Raven's Nightfall AC. Now, a lot of patches have been, introduced to the game since then, lots of balance changes, and also I'm just better and more knowledgeable at the game in general since that time, and I just felt I could definitely do the build way better justice now, and I think I truly have, although I have decided to be a bit more bold with my changes than I was in my original video, but I didn't make any changes that I didn't think weren't worth it, right? Nothing that I didn't think was worth it for the upgrade to the build, right? So kind of one of the main changes biggest changes I've made is the missile type, right? I switched from the original ballistic missiles to vertical blast missiles, right? The VPMs are just outright overpowered in my opinion. They're incredibly strong, incredibly consistent. They do good damage, they do good impact, and again, they're just insanely consistent. They're incredibly hard to evade, and even if you do manage to evade them, it's because you expended a lot of energy to do so, right? So they're just incredibly strong. And one of the other changes I made is switching from, I guess, the original Turner, or the original Scudder assault rifle, when I switched to the Coquelet originally, to the Viento needle gun. Just that extra burst potential, right? Incredibly good. Unfortunately, even after all their buffs, most of the assault rifles are still pretty bad, with kind of the Rensetsu RF kind of being the standout there, but I wanted more burst than the Rensetsu RF provides, so I went for the Viento. And unlike the original build, I have actually made a change to the frame. It's to the arms, of course. It's to the VP46S, or 46D, I mean. They're just incredibly good lightweight arms, right? You guys know the deal. The tool arms just have not particularly good stats, especially in regards to firearm and melee specialization. And those stats are just so incredibly important that I felt it was worth switching them in exchange for kind of losing that look. That kind of almost iconic look of the tool arms. There are a couple arms that look similar, but it was just such a massive improvement performance-wise that I felt it was worth it. And I got to say, build's way better now. I actually played this build quite a bit, testing it, and it's really fun. It's really strong, and I'm enjoying it a lot. Now, let's go ahead and get into the details. Now, starting with right arm unit, we've got the Viento needle gun. Originally, he has the Scudder assault rifle. In my previous video, I switched to the Coquelet handgun, and now we've moved on to the Viento needle gun, right? And the purpose here remains much the same as the original switch in that it's just more consistent. Even after the assault rifles buffs that they got, the handguns in general are just simply still faster and more consistent at getting staggers, right? And kind of much the same is for the Coquelet to the Viento, right? Viento's got more range, it's got higher fire rate, and roughly the same impact. So this is just simply better burst and just better at securing those staggers, right? Better at guaranteeing a stagger, and it's got better range as well, which is kind of a big thing in my opinion. When I first was looking at these, I didn't really think the extra range, like the extra 20 meters, was that big of a deal. But the more I played with the handguns and the more I've used the needle guns in comparison, the more I realized the little bit of extra range on the Viento is kind of way bigger than you think it is. It makes it just so much more consistent. And again, because of its really high burst nature, it's very good at securing staggers, especially if your opponent leaves any sort of opening. You can just dish out so much staggers so quickly, like nearly 1,000 stagger damage in just slightly over a second, right? Very good. Moving on, of course, the pile bunker, the Ashme. Nothing changed here. Of course, couldn't change the pile bunker. Very good weapon. Kind of hard to use, especially hard to land the charge attack, of course, and is kind of the centerpiece of the build. Get a stagger, charge attack, they die, right? Really good. Now, just like the previous video, I haven't actually changed the songbirds from the original build. The songbirds, even after their nerf, are actually still pretty good. Definitely not as good as they used to be. And one thing I will mention is that even less so than the version of the build in my previous video, the songbirds aren't really used for guaranteeing staggers. At most, you use them to prime a stagger to make it easier for your missiles or your needle gun to secure a stagger, or you use them as a alternative direct hit damage dealer, right? If you're at an awkward altitude compared to your opponent and it's just going to be too difficult to get a punish with the pile bunker, use the songbirds instead, right? Or if you just see a good opening in general, use the songbirds, right? And then moving on, the VPMs. Originally he has the 6-cell dual missile launcher, and I switched to the 4-cell for long dynamics forward firing launcher, and now of course the VPMs. I realize this is kind of a bit off theme, of course, being a ballistic missile to an energy-based missile, but frankly the VPMs are just simply so good. In my opinion, they're outright overpowered. These things are just by far the most consistent missiles in the game, in my opinion. They basically always hit, and they actually do pretty good damage and impact, all things considered, right, for how consistent they are. And one thing to really note about these is you can fire them, get a stagger with your Viento, and then, while you're doing your punish with your power bunker, say against like a heavy opponent who's not going to die right away, these will generally land just in time to add like a nice 1,000 or so extra damage to your opponent, right? Really, really good in that regard. Really good at, assisting your staggers. Really good at also just getting more damage in general, right? Definitely, the VPMs are just, again, in my opinion, outright overpowered. And that's all there is to say about the weapons. Now let's move on to the frame. Now, unlike my original video, I have actually made one change to the frame, and I wanted to keep the frame the same, but I felt that this change was simply so significant. It made the build so much better that I felt it was worth doing so. Kind of similar to the VPM change I made. I just felt it was such a massive upgrade that it was worth it. I switched from the original 2 arm to the VP46D. Now, I've talked about these arms many times on this channel. These arms are just simply really, really, really good. Lots of firearm spec, good melee spec, and good stats all around for their weight and energy load, right? And compared to the original, we get a lot of extra firearm specialization, but also a good chunk of extra melee specialization, which is really, really important for this build. Extra firearm specialization helps quite a bit to make your tracking far more consistent. And the extra 17 melee specialization is quite a bit of extra damage with the power bunker. Since his base damage is so high, an extra bit of multiplier is really, really, really valuable, right? And I just felt it was such a massive, massive improvement to the build that I just could not make the change, right? As much as I wanted to keep it in theme. Now, of course, you can still make the build work just fine with the tool arm if you'd really rather stick to the base frame, but just keep in mind, it's definitely worse without the VP46D, right? And that's all there is to say about the frame. The rest of the parts are, pretty decent overall. Nothing particularly special, nothing particularly bad. The shade eye is, actually pretty decent for its weight and energy load. The attitude's ability, especially, and just generally decent stats, right? It's not the best head in the game, but it's far, far from the worst. Pretty good head. The core, kind of in a similar boat. Definitely not the great, also not the worst, right? And not much else to say about it. And the legs, once again, just not the best, not the worst. It is what it is. And that's all there is to say about the frame. Let's move on to the internals. Alright, now first for the booster, the Alula. Now, just like my original video, I switched from his original P10 to the Alula. Obviously, the couple main things here is just way more mobility, better quick boost all around, and just, that's it. It's just way better overall, right? Obviously, the Alula boosters are quite a bit heavier and drain more energy, but compared to the extra mobility you get, it doesn't matter at all, right? Just basically infinitely more mobility. Now, something to keep in mind, this build is just a little bit on the heavy side for the Alulas, but we only go from 0.35 to 0.38, so it's not enough to make a big difference, right? Now, moving on to Talbot, same changes to my original video from the Abbott to the Talbot. Obviously, the Vientos can't be fired at medium range, so it would be kind of a waste to have such poor medium assist, especially with the VP46D arms. That extra little bit of close range assist isn't nearly as important, just better overall, and also the missile lock correction is quite a bit better. Not that it makes a huge difference for the VPMs, of course, but faster lock-on speed is, of course, nice. And then finally, the generator, another change from my original. We're now using the Hokushi. At the time of the original video, the Hokushi hadn't been buffed yet, so there's no way I would have even considered using it, because I'm pretty sure it was really, really bad originally. But now, you might have noticed a lot of my videos are using this generator recently, and that's because it's just simply that good. Talked about it before. For its weight, it's got great energy output, great energy capacity, and good energy recharge speed, right? What else is there to say about it? It's just a fantastic generator. all around. And of course, the original Raven build has the assault armor on, and I felt no need to change it. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, hang around in just a minute for some more gameplay footage. I'll catch you in the next video.
I don't think this is a coincidence.
Raven, we can still... Alright. We'll watch this one. See where they go on a Raven's wings.
All enemy ACs destroyed. Mission accomplished.
Do you read me, Raven? I've identified the target. That's the mercenary who took your name. Let's see how far they can fly. On borrowed wings.
Repair kits remaining.
Raven, we can still... All right. We'll watch this one. See where they go on a Raven's wings.